What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Random Redshirt Podcast. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and with me is the other host, Chris. What's going on, Chris?
Hello, Zach. Hello, everyone, and around the world. Thank you for joining us on the interwebs. And Zach, this is awesome. This is a milestone. Today we are multi-country, right? This is
Yeah.
going to be great. Jenny, thanks so much for joining us. This is terrific.
My pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. I'm
Yes.
coming to you from Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Nice. All the way on the
Canada.
other side, from facing a different ocean from us.
Mhm.
So it's great. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you, Jenny, so much for being here. For those of you listening or watching on YouTube, we appreciate you joining in with us on our step-by-step journey through Star Trek Picard Season 3 as we review Episode 5. And we're delighted to have a guest host with us, Jenny Johnson. She is an incredibly talented artist, and we can't wait to do a virtual art show with her on our next episode coming in just a couple of days from the time of this recording. So be sure to stay tuned for that soon, because we can't wait to share that. But she has so graciously jumped on here with us with her love for Star Trek to talk through Episode 5 of Picard, and this one was a doozy. Let me tell you, every episode really has been kind of a doozy, and they just seem to keep getting more and more crazy. So yeah, Jenny, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to sharing more about your work in the next episode of our podcast, which you can see if you're watching on YouTube behind you, all that fantastic art.
My pleasure. I am delighted to be here. I love nothing better than talking about Star Trek.
That's great. That's great. Don't we all? So, all right. The first 4 episodes, Jenny, since this is the first time on our podcast with us, give us the quick, down and skinny on your thoughts to these first 4 episodes of Picard.
So, I didn't come in with high expectations, but based on what I'd heard, I felt like if they nail it, like they're really going to nail it, So right off the bat, I just felt like, oh man, we're like, this is happening. Like, this is like, it's just the tone is great. The characters showing up, the performances are amazing. The mystery is compelling, like the reason that they're there is like worth it. Yeah, and they just keep throwing more at us,
Yeah.
You finish the first episode and you're like, whoa, that was amazing. And then the next episode, you're like, oh my God, that was even better. And, I'm saying, like, by the time we hit episode 8, I feel like we're all going to have our heads blown off, like, I don't even think we're going to make it to
10. Yeah, that's true. Chris, for those who may have not watched the first 4 reviews, give us your quick thoughts about your first viewing of the first 4 episodes.
Yes. Well, it was wonderful to have the reunion of so many great characters in TNG, and that's great. And I did, like I said a few episodes ago, like how it starts off in terms of, hey, you've got these companions and these friends that are coming together on a quest to find someone, right, and rescue someone, and that was wonderful. And the quest kind of goes in many different directions, and you have this huge thing that happens, a revelation in terms of Picard's son that like changes the dynamic amongst everyone, and then you've got the introduction of a new and kind of fascinating villain that we don't know much about. So there's a lot of unknowns there, danger, and now conspiracy, and now changes to personal relations. Makes it all very good and very interesting. And then it is obvious that there's so much love for the previous series that have come before. So even the last one called, right, it was called No Win Scenario, and that just brings back so much love to all of the Star Trek that's been before us. So that was great. That was great.
Yeah, absolutely. So if this is the first time joining us, welcome to the podcast. We're a couple of nerdy guys who like talking about all things geeky, nerdy, whatever you want to call it. We talk about Star Trek, Star Wars, and everything in between. If you haven't checked out our Facebook and Instagram, be sure to do that, or our YouTube channel. Unless you're on YouTube, then you've kind of discovered that already. And we welcome you to the channel. So all right, let's jump into this. Now, if those of you who are watching or listening have not watched episode 5 of season 3 of Picard, what the heck are you watching this for? Go back and watch it. And be sure also to go back and check out our review and recap of the first 4 episodes of Picard to catch up. But let's dive into this as we go forward. There's going to be obviously spoilers. So if you haven't watched it yet, pause right here, come back when you have finished the episode. Now, Picard and Riker, they must face the music in episode 5, as they say in this episode called Imposters. Their deception in the borrowing of the Titan. Yeah, that kind of was a kind of a faux pas there. Did you guys notice the iconic beeping noises that we heard at the beginning of the episode?
Oh, just
Jenny,
beautiful.
what did you notice that? Yeah.
Right off the bat, it was just classic bridge beeping and the little twirly noise and like.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
It threw
Fantastic.
me right back the toss. Right back to it. Those little beeping noises were fantastic. It's interesting. We get those beeping noises as you space, and all of a sudden you see this kind of pull back into the bridge. And we find that the Titan is back in Federation space making repairs. They've got their own little like worker bee droids or something like that. Did I say droids? That's Star Wars. My gosh. Doug would have my head for crossing the streams on that one. Making repairs from these robots or whatever. Okay, so we also see Jack continuing to deal with these dreams of himself murdering people and the red glowing eyes and everything. Chris, Jenny, do either one of you guys have any potential theories thus far as to what might be the reason why he's having these? I know there's some fan theories out there already, obviously, because there always is, but what do you guys think?
I actually I don't have any theory. I mean, it's obviously connected to somehow with Vadek's boss, right? And because they want him back for some reason. You know, I was thinking, like is he not? Is part of him not human, or is just I don't know. Actually, I don't have a theory yet, so it'll all be.
Any ideas, Jenny? Do you have any theories?
I don't know. I mean, I've been reading a lot of other people's theories, and I'm trying not to just sort of, I'm trying to like sort of keep my mind open. I was listening to what the voices were saying today, and it was like, find me, hear me, and connect us.
Oh, I didn't notice the connect us part.
Yeah. And that I'm like, what? Like, so that's bringing together in some way. I don't know. Like and yeah, like the red eyes thing, the tendrils, I don't know, the like John Wickness of it all. It's
oh no, I was just gonna say I the only fan theory I've read so far, because I've tried to stay away from it because you never know. Just get your imagination running. I don't want to get any presuppositions here, but the one fan theory I did read by mistake was somebody thinks maybe Jack is possessed by the Pa Wraiths, which are, of course, the demon version of the alien wormholes from DS9. I don't know if that's true. I mean, the whole red tentacle thing in the background and stuff, that doesn't really line up with that. No, but the glowing red eyes do.
Yeah, that's kind of the only like in canon thing that ties them together. So I mean, it's a possibility, but I think people just really want to see Cisco.
Yeah. Could you imagine if, because Avery Brooks is retired from acting, I don't think we're ever going to get him out from retirement, but could you imagine if he all of a sudden appeared? People would literally die if they saw Cisco show back up. I mean, this is something that's been being asked for so long. They would literally die if they saw Cisco show up. My gosh. The glowing red eyes and the continued whispers and stuff, that's kind of what I'm like, okay, maybe, but Riker, Seven, Picard, Shaw, they're discussing this idea of how a changeling could have gotten on board a Federation ship. And I remember in DS9 that they come up with these changeling detectors. There was a 2-part episode. I don't know if you remember, Chris, in season 4 of DS9, Homefront and Paradise Lost, where they have to come up with some way of detecting changelings because changelings have infiltrated the Federation. Did that have any tiebacks for you when you heard that?
I honestly I couldn't. I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't remember those episodes of DS9 at the forefront in my mind. But yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And when I was when we started understanding in episode 5, where okay, there's changelings like potentially everywhere. We
Mhm.
don't know how we're we're going to detect them yet, but it did start me, made me feel back into those kind of DS9 days where there's a lot of, there's a lot of anxiety and paranoia that is around then. And so now you've got it happening uh in the starship, like at the moment, and kind of this unknown factor of like, well, how far does this go? Like what do we know?
Mhm.
So I like that sense, in particular. I like having that in there.
Yeah. Now, being this your first time on with us, Jenny. I'm curious on your thoughts when the
Mm.
changelings first showed up in the show. What was your
Oh,
reaction?
yeah, I was so happy that I didn't know, because when Jack went, and because I hadn't even gotten there with Raffi and Worf's prisoner, like I hadn't sort
Mm.
of made the connection. But as soon as Jack punched the guy and his face went like smushed, I was on the edge of the couch. I was just like, what? You know? Like that was, I mean, I think it's an amazing villain to bring back. Like,
Yeah. And we've had those discussions too in previous reviews of Picard, Chris, about this idea that Terry Metalis, not only has he been around for a long time, I believe he was like an assistant or something on TNG, and he's really worked himself through the ranks. He's a fan of the franchise. He knows the franchise inside and out, which is part of the reason why he's brought back the OGs, Denise and Mike Okuda. He brought in, Doug Drexler, and they're doing it right. And the idea that he knows the franchise so well, and he's done such a great job of interweaving the other series besides just TNG, and references to Voyager with the Herosian and Admiral
yeah.
Janeway, references even the deep reference with this statue of Captain Rachel Garrett outside of that Federation recruiting center that gets
Mhm.
torched by the weapon. What do they call it? The interdimensional weapon or something like that. It just sinks the building and then it reappears in the
Yeah.
sky. It's really fantastic to see the level of detail in this season of Picard and all of the Easter eggs and stuff that we've gotten so far.
Yeah.
Really fantastic. So Riker returns command to Captain Shaw, and Shaw returns. He's obviously feels better now because he's returned to
Oh,
his
yeah.
usual attitude, right? And he mentioned, oh yeah, I already called Starfleet and they're on their way, and I'm going to give you guys some time to get your bullshit story straight.
Yeah.
And then he leaves like, okay, Captain Shaw's back.
That was awesome.
Yeah. You know what, I want to see how you guys feel about this, but
Mm.
I really liked that interaction between Shaw, Picard, and Riker. I thought it was hilarious. Do you remember okay, so the Intrepid and the people are on the way.
Mhm.
Shaw has already said that, hey, I've just kind of like informed Starfleet about you guys, and
Yeah.
and um and Shaw kind of starts talking about, well, when Riker says, we have like saved the galaxy a few times, and like
Mhm.
Shaw's like, yeah, well, and you've also violated the Prime Directive like several times. You've created some time paradoxes. You've done
Mhm.
this. So I want to see how you guys felt about that. I loved that myself. I love that from Shaw.
I've From the beginning with Shaw, I've loved, and again, I think I don't know, I like seeing our guys like on their back foot. You know what I mean? Like I like the idea, and and it started with Lower Decks, getting that sort of outside perspective on, what the A team is about, has been doing,
Yeah.
So I really like that. And I like that they're taken aback, and like they can't kind of believe that this guy is like, just who cares? You guys suck. You smashed the Enterprise into a planet.
That's right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, Chris, because so that scene in the turbolift I thought was hilarious. So much so that while I was going back and doing a recap through this as we were preparing for this episode, I actually wrote down his lines. I typed down his lines.
Oh, wonderful.
And
Yeah.
he said, he's in the turbolift and he says, he's like whistling or whatever. And Picard's like, do you mind? He's like, oh, just feeling chipper, And he's like, Riker's like, we saved the galaxy a few times. And Picard says some of the effect of, we hope they remember. Shaw says, or there's that one time where you hot drop the saucer section of the Enterprise D on a planet, which of course is a reference to Generations.
Mhm.
Or that time that someone threw the Prime Directive out the window so they could snog a villager on Baku, Star Trek Insurrection. Or the time you boys almost wiped out the galaxy by creating a time paradox in the Devron system. And he jokes, he's like, you all got a real chicken and egg thing happening here.
Yeah. And did you hear what he was humming?
No, what was he humming?
He was humming "Don't You Forget About Me," like from the Breakfast Club.
Really?
Enough.
No, I did not.
And
catch
I don't know
that.
what I don't know what the relevance is, other than just like him being like, it was just beautiful.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, Chris, that scene in the turbo lift was fantastic. I mean, yeah, I think you said it right, Jenny. He really does a good job of keeping them on their toes, so to speak, which I don't think they're used to. Almost okay. So you think about someone else who kept Picard on his toes besides like Luoxana Troy. I also think of Q. Now, I'm not comparing Shaw to Q, but you know what I mean? Somebody who'd come in and kind of ruffles the feathers, you know, and keeps people on their toes. And, you know, his give a crap factor is pretty low when it comes to the Admiral and the Captain. Yeah, very interesting as this episode goes on. I know after they leave it's a conference room of some kind on board the Titan. Picard mentions, you know, he's going to take full responsibility for what's happened. He mentions to Beverly and Jack that he hopes they can return to their lives. And I noticed this line, and I thought of you, Chris, when he said this, because of the discussions we had on our last episode about Jack and Picard, where Picard says he hopes that he can be a part of their lives, which I found very touching.
Yeah.
Picard. Yeah, that was beautiful. Picard's learned like a lot since then, right? So yeah, he definitely wants to be a part of their lives. A little bit later he talks about, you know, it's interesting, he's just started to get to know Jack, and I want to see how you guys felt about this. I mean, he's only known Jack for like what, like a couple days,
yeah,
not much,
but he's already thinking, well, you know, maybe you could join Starfleet. I'm like
I saw someone online said something along the lines of it's almost like that's like Picard's love language. Like he doesn't know how to, you know, like you could, you know, like I believe in you. You could, you know, like you could be a part of this. But it's not necessarily well taken on Jack's end.
Right.
Yeah. Well, especially because I mean, Picard's a great captain. Obviously, we all know that he's the favorite captain of many. But I feel like when it comes to interpersonal skills sometimes, or some of these situations, he kind of comes across as a little bit awkward. Like I don't really know how to act. And so I think there was like a New York Times article that I read where the author wrote something to the effect of Picard's very good at toting the company line, in this case, Starfleet, right? Like, yeah, you know, do something honest with your life. Maybe join Starfleet. And Jack's like, really? Like, that's what you're going to say to me?
I actually wrote that down when in that conversation. I said Picard he's so ready to reach out, and especially like everything he went through in season 2, like he's a lot more open, but he doesn't know how, you know, like he doesn't have the skill set to the interpersonal skills. Exactly. Like
there was that episode in TNG, I think it was called Lessons, where he kind of has a thing for that woman who comes on board as a science officer, and she's teaching him how to play music, and he pulls out his Resican flute for the first time since Inner Light. And you can just kind of tell, he's like, I don't really know, you know, it's kind of like he's getting the dance floor and he doesn't really know how to dance. So he's like, okay, I'm going to sway my hips, and this is pretty much all I know how to do. And everybody else is doing the swing dance while he's just sitting here back and, you know, very awkward. Way to put it. Yeah. So we jump to Raffi and Worf, and we see them on board her ship, which used to be, remind me the name of the captain in the first season. Rios, Captain Rios. That was his ship originally, right? And then it becomes hers because he stays behind, because he also falls in love with a random woman in the past. And, you know, what can you do? I guess so, you know, I'll be sure not to time travel. Anyways, so... they're fighting, and I love the continued mentorship between Worf and Raffi, right? You know, Worf was her secret handler. She didn't know who it was for a while, and he was kind of mentoring her a little bit. Interesting that we find out that as they're going down this rabbit trail, they want to try to get access to Daystrom, the secret Daystrom Institute, and it's denied, and they're told to find another way. Raffi's on board with this idea that there's some kind of conspiracy going on in Starfleet and that they're hiding something. I love the line Worf says here, Chris, where he says, "Don't presume to know what I have and have not sacrificed for this." Very, very Worf. Like that's just a right there with Worf, you know. Fantastic line there. I don't know what your thoughts were on that kind of that scene and the way Worf is kind of putting Raffi in her place a little bit based on her presuppositions about him.
I thought it was a great scene. Also made me think about something, and I'll connect this later when we talk about another relationship, but that relationship between Worf and Raffi, right? So I watched a little bit of the after show of this episode, which was very good. But you notice, like, Worf calls her Rafaela, right? So he, and that, I think that's the only thing he calls her, like Rafaela. And there's something about like her need, right? So Worf, and everyone's need, Worf recognizes the potential that she has within herself, and he speaks directly to that potential of what she could be. So he's talking to her as you know, Rafaela, and so that is something like she craves and probably has wanted, and that helps her like dearly, right? Because she's in this kind of moment in her life where she can really use that. You know, Picard used to be that to her until they had a falling out, and now Worf is that to her. And so kind of Worf like immediately identifies her as a warrior and kind of recognizes those qualities in her. So when you can see Raffi kind of push Worf's kind of buttons and say, you know, why not this? Why not that? Why not that? Then like eventually like he has to draw the line and say like, hey, well, look, you don't see everything. You don't see the entire, you know, picture, you know, listen, like essentially. So I like that. I like that a lot about that, the mentor and the mentee kind of relationship and seeing someone's potential. So yeah.
Raffi's a particular favorite of mine. And I really, it's really nice to see this dynamic for her, because like you say, I mean, she had a similar relationship with Picard, but he also, I don't know, she was also a tool for him in a lot of ways. Like, and I feel like her relationship with Worf is a little more, I just feel like you say, I feel like he sees her, you know, like he sees her, you know, and her potential. Exactly.
Yeah. And so what you exactly, we can touch on it later, but what you exactly said, like, I love, because you said, yeah, he sees her, right? And we're going to see that, we're going to hear that theme like a little bit later. Like, all right, do you see, you know, the question comes, do you see me? So that is, and having both of those relationships here in the same episode is, you know, that is what I see. It's like, oh, okay, you get this. You get one that ended not the way you want, right? And then you have one that is kind of, hey, this could be successful. But I like seeing those together, those juxtapositions, those parallels. I think those are wonderful. I think well crafted.
Oh, well said. Yes.
See, that's why people tune into our podcast to hear Chris's insights.
Right?
No.
So, okay, did you guys know, Jenny, did you notice some of the familiar names in the database search that Worf did? They were quick on screen, but did you notice it? I had to go back. I was like, wait a second, did I see that? I had to pause it, rewind it for those younger generation when we had VHS tapes and had to rewind, but had to go back, whatever you want to call it. Did you notice some of the names that popped up on that search?
I meant to swing back and I actually forgot to go back, but did I see Brunt in there?
Yes, Brunt of Ferenginar. Yeah, he was one of them. Yes, there was somebody else on there who somebody else on there who was from DS9 who never shut his mouth. Do you know who it was? Morn. Morn of Lyria, how do you say it, was on there as well. Yeah, Morn of Lyria, Kryn, Brunt of Ferenginar. Talk about some massive Easter eggs.
That's wild.
Yeah, yeah. We all know Morn, right? Morn never stopped talking. He always dominated the scenes that he was in DS9, right? So, yeah, I thought that was fantastic. And then we also get this Kryn guy. And as they head back to Mtalis Prime, I think is how you say it, to meet Kryn. I find it very interesting. Picard season 3 has introduced us to some characters that are a little bit different than the stereotype, right? Like the Ferengi. Oh geez, what was his name? Why am I forgetting it?
Sneed.
Yeah, Sneed. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sneed was a slightly different Ferengi.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, he still had some of the characteristics, but we get Kryn, a gangster Vulcan. Like, have we ever had a gangster Vulcan in Star Trek before? By the way, the actor, I don't remember his name, but the actor who plays Kryn in Picard also played a recurring villain in Arrow.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've watched the Arrow series.
I haven't watched the Arrow. He was in Fringe.
He was in Fringe too. Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yep. If you have not watched Arrow, my goodness, go watch it. It's a favorite of mine. I think it's maybe the best DC series that they've done.
Oh, that's good to know.
But he was a recurring bad guy. I want to say season 3, 4, 5, something like that in Arrow. Really fantastic actor. I think he's a little bit typecast in the sense he plays a bad guy a lot, but geez, he's good at it. But yeah, what do you guys think of
something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, really good. But man, and he was fantastic as this gangster Vulcan. He really was. Kryn. Oh my gosh. He had like the tattoo on his face and some scarring and yeah, but then at the end of the day, he still kind of reverted back to some traditional Vulcan values of logic, right? Yeah, I thought the Easter eggs in that list were pretty cool. So we get the USS Intrepid, which shows up in the series, right? And this is a new class of starship, which I found out via Doug Drexler's Facebook page, was partly named after his late wife, Dorothy Dutter. The name of the ship, the class of the ship, and I hopefully I pronounced the class correctly, Dutterstadt class?
Yeah, Dutterstadt, yeah.
Dutterstadt class?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a little bit of an NX-01 refit vibe to it.
It does, yeah.
But it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. And what an absolutely amazing tribute to his late wife, Dorothy, who worked on Enterprise and other things, obviously. And the fact that I'm assuming it was Terry that gave the authorization for them to name that class ship was really fantastic. Very, very fantastic. So we get this ship, the USS Intrepid, that shows up. The scene and look on Shaw's face in that turbo lift, I go back to that, was so fantastic. But the ship shows up and they take a shuttle over and they're like, oh, are the transporters broken? Why are they bringing over a shuttle? And lo and behold, Jenny, we get a massive cameo drop in this. Were you expecting this at all?
Okay. Excuse me. So, I wasn't, but I also I'd read the little blurb, so I knew it was a prodigal crewman. So I was like, so I was laying awake the night before, like, who could it be? Who could it be? Maybe Ro, maybe. And when I went to play it on Crave that morning, the thumbnail that they used was her face. So I didn't get quite the surprise I should have gotten. Yeah. They've changed that, actually. They fixed it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Because the thumbnail for this particular episode of recording right now, I almost thought of doing that. I'm like, no, that's going to be a huge spoiler for people. Right. So I chose a different image from the bridge with some people on it. But yeah, I decided to keep that image out of the thumbnail.
Yeah. So I wasn't expecting it, but I still was like, oh, so excited.
Yeah. So, okay. For those listening, if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know that TNG is Chris's favorite Star Trek series in the franchise. So, Chris, what were your thoughts when Ro Laren shows up on the Titan in the hallway with the security team?
So I had no idea that this was going to happen, and I had no idea that there was going to be like a cameo like that. So it was completely new to me.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And And I was like, oh wow. And okay, so I have to watch it again because my first reaction was, I was kind of, I guess maybe it was so new and maybe some shock. So I'm like, okay, she's back. And then honestly, I was trying to adjust to having her back there.
Mhm.
And then as Ro is talking with the characters, as she's talking with Riker and Picard, and you kind of hear them talking about history, I honestly was like, okay, I'm trying to remember, where did they leave off in their relationship? So I was on my back heels, like going, oh, this is really new. I was not prepared for this. I
Right.
don't quite remember like what happened like in your relationship. So a lot of that I wasn't completely focused on the scene because I'm trying to remember the context of like where they left off. So that
Mhm.
was like that was how it got to me. So I'm gonna have to do another kind of watch and to kind of see how it is now. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
me. How about-
Yeah,
yeah,
I was the same way, Chris.
yeah.
I'm sitting there watching, and she's talking, and I'm like, hold on a second. What happened in the last episode she was in of TNG?
Right.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because I felt the same. Did you feel the same way on that, Jenny? Did you remember her how she left? Because I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I've done the whole TNG a good number of times, and I actually just finished a rewatch last month, so I
Oh,
was really fresh on it. But I think that's actually pretty common because it was in season 7, we all had 7 years to rewatch the other episodes, so I always feel like the season 7 episodes I'm not as familiar with.
mm.
You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I was lucky that I had that really fresh in my head.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, it's been a minute. So I thought it was fantastic. Now, not to get into too much of a spoiler for our next episode with you, but I do know you did a painting from Battlestar Galactica of what eventually became known as Caprica 6, right? Trisha Helfer's
Yes.
character. I believe the image is based off of like maybe the pilot episode or early on in the series.
Yeah.
Michelle Forbes is also in Battlestar Galactica as the
Mm.
Admiral of the Pegasus, I believe it
Whew.
was.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see her back on as Ro, and then the look she had, old, elder in her life, whatever you want to say it, reminded me a lot more of her as the Admiral in BSG because she's
Yes.
older, and she was older in BSG.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you kind of had any kind of connection with Battlestar when you saw her come back or not, but I
Oh
certainly
yeah.
did.
Oh yeah, definitely. And again, the way she was carrying herself and just very hard, very like adversarial.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that particular episode of BSG is like even just thinking about it is like, oh, yeah.
It is a
Like
really good
that
episode.
little arc. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when she first showed up on BSG. I'm like, it's Ro Laren. How did she get over
Mhm.
here? She's missing her nose ridges. But anyways,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh gosh, I think it was so cool that it was so cool that they brought her in. And what I love is the fact that it was so surprising and shocking. Tells me how good they did at keeping it under wraps, and it makes you wonder what else they've got up their sleeve in these last, 5 episodes, right? Like what I mean, Doug mentioned to us when he was on with us the last couple times
Mhm.
that we haven't seen anything yet, and it just keeps getting more and more. Our minds are going to get blown, and it's like I'm like, how much else can there be? But there's a lot still to unpack. There's still a lot of
Mhm.
questions that are left unanswered. I'm having more and more questions as this episode goes on. In episode 5, I have
Mhm.
more and more questions about Jack. Instead of
Yeah.
it just being, oh, he's Picard's son. Now it's like, well, wait a second. Now I'm starting to have thoughts, and I don't know if you had these thoughts, Chris, or Jenny even.
Mhm.
Is he really Picard's son, or is something up? Because, and we'll get into this a little bit
Mhm.
later, but there's something else awry here, and I think maybe Beverly knows this secret, and she's not sharing it because there was a scene we'll talk about in a little bit. But as we continue to go on in the episode, 7 goes and hides Jack as Picard requested, and Beverly begins examining the changeling. Now, this is interesting because she mentions that when she cuts into the arm and this changeling had taken the form of Lieutenant LaForge, that there's blood that comes out, but there's no DNA discovered. So
Mhm.
they have no DNA, but they still have this blood-like plasma. And the fact that changelings can pass the blood test which they did get to that point in DS9 where they were able to gather
Right.
blood from the person that they imitated and then release it when they needed to. But this is different. This is farther developed, right? Like Beverly believes that maybe the changelings are evolving and now they could be anywhere or anyone. And this was a concern during the Dominion War, right? This was something that came out where they were worried. I mean, heck, Odo was a changeling and he was worried about that happening.
Yeah.
So I continue to get these vibes of, okay, a lot of stuff that they had concerns about during the Dominion War are really starting to come to bear right now. Anybody else feel like that?
Oh yeah. Well, it's just this sort of looming dread, especially having seen what happened with the Dominion War and seeing how far spread it was. Just, how bad it can get,
Yeah.
So they're in big trouble.
They are in big trouble. Oh, and what I like about it too is that it's been a little while since I've seen DS9, right? It's been a little while since I've seen TNG, but all of these that are here, it makes us want to go back and kind of see and refresh our memories on okay, what happened? And then for those that maybe have never seen TNG or never seen DS9, it gives them a connection point to go, maybe I should go back, and because there's this whole other rich history of what they can watch and what they can learn from. So that I like.
I will. Yeah, I will steal Worf's line and say today is a good day to go back and rewatch TNG or DS9.
Nice.
It's always a good day to rewatch either one of those series. I'm on my eighth watch through of DS9, and I'm in season 3 right now. I'm just it's a slow thing. I just kind of every once in a while pop in an episode. I'm not in any hurry because I know I know once I get to the final episode of What We Left Behind, I just skip it and start over because I can't watch it.
Nice.
But anyways, yeah, lots of things coming back as we see these scenes. Now we get back into this conference room where Ro and Picard are alone, and Picard, you can tell he feels betrayed, right, by Ro. He feels like, he mentored her. He invested time in her, and he feels as though she's a traitor, even though she's kind of calling them traitors. And he believes that that's the case because she went and left Starfleet to go fight with the Maquis, who were enemies at the time, even though Riker, if you guys saw that, the Maquis are no longer enemies or whatever. And he's like, I don't care. She betrayed her captain. This is personal. This will also, okay, I know it's under DS9 reference, but it also reminds me of when Sisko went after Eddington and he was just hell bent on revenge, like in Les Miserables, right? Because he was hell bent that he needed to get revenge because he felt like Eddington betrayed him and pulled the sheet over his eyes.
Yeah.
I see the exact same type of thing playing out here a little bit in this scene with Picard because he feels like Ro betrayed him and he's taking it personal.
Yeah, he's been carrying that, definitely.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can see the stuff that Picard's been carrying on him, all these years. And I find it interesting. Okay, so she's like, let's get this over with, and Ro cuts her hand and blood comes out. And Picard also notices that she doesn't have a Bajoran earring on. Now, do you remember, Chris, in TNG, the big battle and issue with Ro being able to wear her earring in uniform? I believe, was it Riker? I don't remember, Chris.
Riker,
Was it Riker who had a big fit about her having her earring on in uniform? And then I don't remember, was it Picard that said something to the effect of like, basically allowed her to wear it in order to kind of ease her transition into becoming an officer? Something like that.
Yeah, once she kind of showed that she had some depth, that she had some potential.
Yeah, and keep a sense of who she was is. I felt like so that scene, especially the opening scenes with Picard and Ro, I think are beautifully played out. There is Ro's coming in it like as she is, right? She's suspicious of everybody, and she's got her role as a security leader, and they come in, and there's been so much distance and time between them, and so much hurt, right? There's so much hurt between them, so you've got this tentative kind of back and forth with these exploratory questions that each of them like has to kind of say, because at that point they don't really know that each is who they are. So they're like, are
Yeah.
they a changeling or not? So you've got these these questions that kind of go back and forth, kind of trying to explore, are you really who I think you are, or are you like a changeling? But I think that there was very well played by both of the actors, and you kind of have the shields start to come down, and layer by layer it starts to come down, and then you start getting into more of the pain that each of them has. So I thought it was great. So they come to like complete mistrust, and then unveiling of pain, and then connection. So that was, I thought they did a great job.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
during that scene, Picard is saved by the bell, so to speak. It's the message right from Beverly, who says something to the effect of, right, like the changelings can imitate anyone, or the blood and all. I can't remember the exact verbiage right in her message, but at the end says trust no one, right? Which is funny because it goes back to when she originally sent the message and says don't trust anybody, and then what does Picard do? Goes right to Riker. So yeah, I mean, that's a really powerful scene. I think that scene between Ro and Picard initially, once they're just alone for the first time, really sets, the tone. Initially, right, until they get into the holodeck. But we also see Jack continuing to struggle with these voices, like you mentioned, at the beginning of our chat, Jenny, with what he said, "Find me,
Hear
help,
me."
hear me."
Yeah.
And then what was the third one?
Connect us.
Oh, connect us. Okay. Yeah, he's continuing to struggle with those. This red looking thing continues to haunt his images. He continues to see, he'll see like people dying or him killing somebody, and then it'll go back to normal or back to reality. And that's I'm still kind of torn as to what that could be. I have several ideas, but I'm trying not to let those ideas affect my viewing of it, because I don't want to go, oh, wait a second, I'm way off on that,
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel like I want that part of it. At least I feel like I almost don't want to guess. I want to just experience that part of the story, I think.
Yeah. There's a part of me that doesn't, I don't know. There's a part of me, I've got all these ideas running through my head because I don't want to be like disappointed where like, oh, that's all it is. But I don't think that's going to be the case, because so far the track record from this season has been so good. I don't think we're going to get that kind of a thing to happen. So, yeah, really interesting. Then we go back to Raffi and Worf. We get to meet Kryn for the first time, this gangster Vulcan, and he basically says, "Yeah, you're going to fight to the death." And see which one ends up. And there's some of his like cronies, or his thugs, or whatever you want to call them, in his little group there, are betting money on Worf, of course, because he's the Vulcan and she's just this human, right? Or human, as the Ferengis call him. And of course, right, the underdog in this case, Raffi, or Raffaella, striking the blow to Worf with the knife. And we all know better, but Kryn thinks that Worf's died.
Was this the same fight where Worf he's fighting her one-handed? I can't remember if that was
no, that was the training they were doing on the ship. Although that, I'm glad you mentioned that. We didn't say that. That was pretty hilarious, where he's fighting, then he just puts one arm behind the back and starts going like this, like, yeah, some classic Worf comedy, right? But yeah, we know better. We know better. I mean, if they killed off a character like Worf in Picard, I think there would be rioting in the streets by all Trekkies. That's just not going to happen. So what we do learn, though, and that Worf mentions at knife point, is that he's mastered the Kahless technique of, mastering his heart rate, which I found really cool, that they bring Kahless into it as well. So that was a cool scene. We then go to the holodeck where Ro and Picard are back in 10 forward, the bar again. That seems to be like the happening place on Picard, I guess. And Ro tells him that she believes the highest levels of Starfleet are compromised. So again, this takes me back to the idea of the changelings had infiltrated at every level of Starfleet, and we're getting some significant level of compromised in this. There was a line in this, Chris, that Ro said, Picard and Ro kind of say to each other, that really hit me. I don't know if it had the same effect on you. Do you remember? Was there a particular line from this scene? Maybe you're thinking of the same one I am. This particular scene that really kind of hit you in the face.
if this is the same one, it's one that Picard said. Maybe they both said it. I don't remember, but this is something I would not expect Picard to say in any previous episode or season of Star Trek. But he says, "You broke my heart."
Mm.
And does she say you broke mine too? Or
Yes.
okay, I Picard would never. I don't think he would have ever said that before season 2 of Picard.
Yeah.
So that's not something he would have said.
Yeah. And I think that goes, we talked about this. I want to say, was it the last episode, Chris, or the previous one, episode 3 we reviewed about Picard's journey. And I think the impact of looking back on his family situation and his parents and how that's kind of affected him emotionally.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know. What do you think, Jenny, on that? Do you think that the story arc about his parents and his mother's, you know, suicide and everything that kind of went into that is kind of what closed Picard off emotionally from a lot of things?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think I think the Rose situation is a good example of how closed off he was back when we knew him before, and that he let her in as far as he did, and then she betrayed him.
Mm.
Just how deeply that hurt him, because it was so rare for him to actually, you know, let anybody in. So yeah, like no wonder he's carrying this like this awful, you know, resentment and hurt, and but how great that he's actually able to kind of open up again and admit it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I found the another quote really fascinating too that Picard says, where I think he said it to Riker, where he says empathy is one thing, betraying a commanding officer is another. Or did he say that to Ro? I can't remember who he said that to,
I
but
think he said it to Riker. Yeah.
did he say it right? I
Mhm.
found that quote really interesting. How he's like, you know, it's one thing to empathize with somebody, but now he's talking about betraying a commanding officer. I think there's more to it than just betraying a commanding officer, right? Like again, Picard's taking this personal.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're learning just how deeply he felt for Ro from like a mentorship, more than just a commanding officer perspective, right? Like he
Mhm.
really felt like, you know, Ro meant a lot to him, and the amount of time and stuff and effort he invested in her. And he's taken that so personal from this. And you
Yeah.
know, so all of these emotions are coming out between them on the holodeck.
And Riker was, I'm sorry, Riker was trying to defend Ro at that point, right?
Yeah.
That's the right. So, and that's kind of why Picard said, yeah, empathy is one thing, betraying a commanding officer is another.
Yeah.
So, so I do like that Riker is kind of defending Ro, um, because Riker is the one Riker has more experience than Picard in family and in relationships.
Mhm.
You know, and that whole thing there. So I like that he's the one kind of defending Ro and kind of pointing that out to Picard. But you know, Picard can't see that because he's
Yeah.
Picard. So so I like
Yeah,
that a lot.
it's really nice actually. Riker so far, for the most part, there is a bit of a shift in there. Like he's the one that Picard is leaning on. It's there's definitely like, I don't want to say a power shift because it's not that, but it's yeah, like he's, I don't know, he's the one with the wisdom and the yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The more we get into this season, the more that the line that Picard says to Riker stands out to me, where Picard says, I think maybe it's fitting that you call me number one, or something like that. Almost like Picard's noticing and emphasizing that Riker is taking a different role in their relationship, right? The mentor becomes the mentee,
Yeah.
and this flipping of roles, where Riker has more at this point in his life. He has more life experience in this department than Picard ever has. And so he's continuing to help mentor Picard. And you mentioned this on our last episode, Chris, about Riker's role in mentoring Picard and helping him to understand the importance of spending time with Jack, right? When they thought that they were all going to die, and go spend time with your son, right? And the importance of that, because he had a son who passed away, so he knows the importance of having that time with his son, and wants Picard to feel the same way and experience the same thing. So really an interesting dynamic. And this season of Picard has reminded me not only where these characters have come from and where they're currently at in their lives, but the amount of character development. And this is my own personal opinion, I don't know how you guys feel. The character development so far in Picard season 3 is unmatched in the whole franchise, I think, since Deep Space Nine. I think, and I've said this on the show several times, probably more times than people want to hear, that DS9 had the best character development of any series in the franchise. And I think Picard season 3 is closely approaching that. The way they're developing characters. Some people may not agree with the way the characters are being developed, because you're always going to get those few, right? The critics. But the amount of development going on in such a small window of episodes is absolutely amazing. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on the character development so far.
Yeah. I think you're right about Deep Space Nine, and I think it was because they let them actually develop the characters and actually let them retain what they had learned. And definitely. But yeah, like I think the characters in this season, and we're only 5 episodes in, we're halfway in, and we've already seen so much depth in Riker. In Picard, we have the benefit of the previous 2 seasons, having seen this considerable arc that he's been on.
Yeah.
And Beverly too, just this completely off track journey that Beverly's been on. I'm so excited how they're bringing everyone in. I love that it's happening gradually. I like that the story is kind of earning it,
Yeah.
Like that they didn't everybody just show up on the first day like, hooray, off we go. Like it's like
time for our Planet of the Week adventure.
Yeah, right. I really appreciate what you said earlier, Chris, about just about that, the quest and having to sort of put the pieces together and get the party ready to actually go out and do the thing. It's great.
Yeah. Zach and Jenny, I have appreciated the character development, not only in this season 3, but when I look at as Picard as a series itself. So that's its namesake, right? Picard. But what I acknowledge, what I appreciate is that within the series, seasons 1, 2, and this one, they are bringing in characters and kind of moments and situations for Picard, these characters that have caused him pain, in that have caused him joy, but also caused him pain in some respects. So to make him face those kinds of feelings about himself. So in the first one was Data, right? Data was this great sense of joy and fulfillment, and being essentially a father to Data, but also the ending of how that ended up was just so much pain. And then Ro in season 3, and then Q like in season 2, of this antagonist that had just bothered him for so long, but also made him see things like about himself. And Beverly, I know Beverly was she was of course she was one of the main characters, but also someone that brought him pain, right? She left. He had no idea why. He had to kind of consider that was just this hole in his mind for the last 20 years or greater than 20 years. So I like that these people are coming into the series that he has to face. These are things he has to face as a human being. These things that have brought him pain, and how does he grow from that? How does he react to that? How does he become more? And so when I think of like character development, of course, I'm thinking mostly of Picard. There are other characters are developed beautifully too, but that's what I like. So that inner journey.
Yeah, it's kind of like his past is catching up to him a little bit, right? And it's I really liked what you said there, Chris, about all these different characters that have brought him both joy and harm, and are great not harm, but grief and things like that. Because I believe in the trailer for Picard season 3, we and this isn't a spoiler for anybody who has not watched Picard season 3 yet. Maybe you've watched a trailer. We did see Moriarty in the trailer. So when are we going to get him in this? And how are they going to work Brent Spiner back in? Because I'm assuming, based on the publication photos and stuff, I think he was supposed to be as Lore. So is that all going to weave in? And who's Vadic? And how does all this come together? Like, I think this, man, I'm telling you what, episode 10, we're all just going to like wither into of dust at the end of episode 10, because we're going to just be so, full of all this stuff that it's just going to cause us to wither away. But there's so many things still to come. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. But this scene in 10 Forward on the holodeck, I thought was really interesting, because this scene, I think, is really helping to build the drama as we continue through the episode and as we continue more into the rest of the season. This idea of trust between both Picard and Ro. We find out that there may be more changelings on board the Intrepid. We also learn that Starfleet, might have a massive changeling problem across its entire, control. In fact, she even mentions, I think there was 12 incidents across multiple starships. Starfleet is insisting that Ro retrieve Jack. So Jack is somehow tied to this changeling thing. We don't know. I mean, is he a changeling and he just doesn't realize? I mean, who knows, right? I love the reference to Admiral Janeway again. I thought that was great. And we also learn, kind of indirectly, that Ro was the handler for Worf and Raffi, right? Because she says a pair of intelligent assets on the ground, Worf and Raffi. So she leaves back to her ship on the shuttle, and there's something. And did you catch what Ro gave Picard right before she left, Jenny?
Oh yeah, because I was like, oh.
Yeah, she gave him her earring, right? Because he noticed in that scene when they were alone together for the first time in the conference room or observation room, whatever it was, that she wasn't wearing her Bajoran earring.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting, because of all the fighting that went on about her to get her to wear that earring in uniform was a big deal. So she gives him that earring very secretively, so that the security officers that come in can't see. And she leaves and heads back on the shuttle towards the Intrepid, and Picard and Riker are able to convince Shaw that hey, Starfleet's been compromised. Like, there's something's going on here, right? Shaw's not the easiest guy to influence, at least for Picard and Riker, because he doesn't really think super highly of them.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then finally, we get this idea that Picard and Riker realize Ro's earring that she gave to Picard is full of all the information that from her investigation into this changeling infiltration. And there's even an encoded communication that comes from Worf. And so I believe this is the first time that Worf and Riker and Picard are all connected in the show since the Star Trek movie, since Nemesis. So I thought that was pretty fantastic. But man, what an episode! Of episode 5. I'm curious on some general thoughts here. I know we've talked about a lot of different things in season 5, but what are some kind of just overall thoughts as you think back to episode 5 and what we've talked about? Let's start with you, Jenny. Go ahead.
Well, speaking of the earring and the information coming up, I really love that it gave conspiracy wall vibes. I really like I really liked that it was all there.
Yeah, it reminded me X-Files conspiracy stuff, right? Like the big wall that Mulder has
with the red. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly. I just that was fantastic. I really appreciated the conversation with Beverly and Jack at the end there. Just, I don't know, because we still don't know what's going on with them. I am very hesitant to think that she isn't who she says she is, because I know that's been floated around a little bit, but I just she's not a changeling. I just
Yeah, when she cut her hand there with the blood, and then you get the message from Beverly saying trust no one. That's when I thought, oh, is Ro a changeling? Like I had that thought initially, and then once they get into the holodeck and you realize, okay, no, she's not a changeling. She's not. But I think they did that intentionally to make you start thinking, oh, maybe she's a changeling.
Yeah. Like there's some conjecture online that Beverly might be a changeling, which I'm not on board with, but
I don't know if I buy that.
But it's just interesting sort of seeing the dynamic between the two of them. I think Jack Ed Spielers
I don't know how to say it, so go with it.
His performance, like he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like he's really like, yeah, I'm there with him, I think that's fantastic. Overall, the Picard and Ro, like that was closure as a TNG fan I didn't realize I needed. But I'm so glad I got it, oh man, like and actually when she handed off the earring to him in the hallway, and then she kind of said like, I wish you had seen me, like even just the way their voice changed, like that, she went right back to Ro back then. Like it was a really nice just little acting choice, like that it felt like them 30 years ago. Yeah, oh my god, this show. It's an embarrassment of riches,
Yeah, I will say, I don't remember being as excited for each new episode of season 3 as I was. Like I was not this excited for each new episode from season 3 as I was in season 1 and 2. Like the season 3, every week it's like, okay, is it Thursday yet? Is it Thursday yet? Season 1 and 2, it was like, oh, it's that time of the week again. Oh, I guess I'll go pop on the next episode to see what happens, kind of thing. But do you find yourself really anticipating every week that next week?
Oh yeah. Yeah, like I haven't felt this way since I was a kid waiting for the new TNG episode. Like I'm you'd watch the next week on Star Trek The Next Generation, and you just like think about it all week, like, oh my god, was that Spock? What's gonna happen? And it feels like that. Like I feel like a kid. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's Doug, I think, said it best when he said this is a love letter to TNG and to TNG fans. And so far, I feel like we're getting that. I like the comment you mentioned about how we got closure on the whole Ro Picard, relationship that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I think that's a really good point that you made there. I think we're probably going to get more of that, more about stuff that we didn't realize we needed, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. So Chris, I'm curious on your thoughts. What do you think of this episode as a whole? What were some of your thoughts? I know we shared a lot of different things as we've gone through and looked at the episode and the synopsis of it and what happened, but what are some other things that popped up in your mind as you're going through this?
Yeah, like I think I said before, had a different episode, but just to give credit and such positive like acknowledgement of the aesthetic of the show, like the Intrepid, right? The Intrepid and the Titan just looked beautiful. They just looked fantastic, and I'm just really happy that aesthetic is all there, and they just have so much love in the design of the bridge and the design of the ships and how everything looks. And I'm so glad that they do that. I did see, just to add a little bit of humor, I saw like a post somewhere that said, why is Shaw's bridge so dark? And why was Picard's bridge on the Enterprise like so bright? And the post was like, well, Picard was an expert on lights, making a joke to that. Right, so whoever came up with that joke did a great job there.
Well, we all know there are 4 lights, right?
Yeah.
4 lights.
So,
yeah. So great aesthetic. Great. I just want to positively like share that with Terry and Doug. Just a wonderful job they've done with the show. What stood out to me, I think on this episode, I'm going to focus on 3 different three different relationships: the relationship between Worf and Rafaela, the relationship between Picard and Ro, and then the relationship between Picard and Jack. In the conclusion of Ro, I mean, it was tragic. I wish actually that, we didn't actually see her die. So maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know,
know.
maybe there's a chance.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe she can come back. So I'd be hopeful for that. The relationship between Worf and Rafaela, like I said before, I really love that mentor and mentee relationship. I love the scene. There's a scene where you can see really the stark differences between two of them. And this is right before they meet Kryn, I think, and they're walking through that street, and Rafaela says, "Where's everyone?" And Worf makes a comment, "Well, we've established ourselves as the alpha," and right, and then Rafaela's reaction is a kind of an emotional one off that, and then she fires her phaser
Yeah.
like in the sky and says, "Hey everyone, listen up. You're gonna do this and this and this and this." And then Worf's reaction is completely opposite, where he goes down on his knees and then he starts meditating, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I love this line he says. Um, he says, "I'm waiting for the ecology of the place to right itself." And so
Yeah.
okay, so I'm gonna go. I'm sorry, Zach. I'm gonna go a little bit deep, right? But then
That's okay. That's okay, because I'm always on the surface.
No,
So
I love
no,
it.
right. So you have the mentor and then the mentee relationship and the master and apprentice relationship, right? Where the apprentice is thinking, I can control the situation. So that is why Rafi goes and she fires the phaser and she's trying to control it. And Worf, as in that relationship as the master, he knows he can't control it. So he's waiting for the environment to kind of right itself, and then being able to make the decision after that. So I love that that's there, and I don't know if if there was intentionality of it, but I do like it. And so I like that relationship there. The relationship with Picard and Ro, and then Picard and Jack, it really, I think it was really beautiful that Ro is saying, I wanted you to see me. You couldn't see me. I wanted you to see me, because she knew that Picard, I think, Zach, like you said, Picard was the company voice of Starfleet, right?
Yeah.
Starfleet has all of these ideals. You represented those ideals, and you couldn't separate yourself from that. So you could never see me. Um, and then that's like a learning thing for Picard. So that's why he was never able to successfully in the end kind of mentor Ro into what she could be. And that's why she left. So that was the ending of one kind of mentor mentee relationship. And then you've got Picard and Jack, where that's the beginning, right? That's the beginning of their relationship. But Picard's already saying, "Well, why don't you think about joining Starfleet?" And you have you have Jack's relationship like going, "Really? That was like kind of the first thing you say to me." And like so we'll see how that goes on. But Picard has like this opportunity to take what he learned from Ro to go, "Hey, I didn't see her," right? And now he's got a son and going, "Oh, now I have an opportunity to see him, see who he is." So we'll see. I would love to see how that develops and see how that goes. But that's what I took like from the episode, was those key relationships from Picard. But a lovely episode, like all around, that I liked. So Zach, yes.
That was beautifully said.
No.
Very typical for Chris. He
No.
eloquent, and deep, and I'm talking about explosions and phasers and stuff. So, yeah, no, for me, okay, a little bit of transparency here. I was not a fan of Rolaren from the TNG series. I just didn't like the character. And nothing against Michelle Forbes. I thought she played it brilliantly. She's a great actress, and yeah, I wasn't really a huge fan of Ro, to be honest with you. There were aspects about her character I just really didn't like. I think she was there's a point between being like in your face and being aggressive, and I just thought she was a little too over the top of the way that they wrote the character. But that being said, I loved the character in this episode. Loved it. It was to kind of play off of what you said, Jenny. It was the reunion I didn't realize I needed I didn't realize I needed more Ro in my life.
Right.
I was completely fine with her being off fighting with the Maquis and being done. I apparently needed more Ro Laren in my life. That's really what it boiled down to. My weekend's complete. But yeah, the scene between her and Picard in the holodeck at 10 forward, I thought was powerful. It was very touching. There's been a lot of those powerful scenes in Picard season 3 so far. I remember, I mean, when I was a kid watching Star Trek growing up and watching episodes like The Inner Light and stuff, I didn't really care for those episodes. Now that I'm older and I'd like to think a little wiser, and I'd like to think a little more thoughtful, I really enjoy those types of episodes now. I used to be, I loved the battle fights between the Klingons and the Federation and the Romulans and everything and the Borg. And now I find myself drawn to these episodes where there's deep interpersonal connections. And yeah, I'm changing, I guess. What can I say? But yeah, fantastic reunion. I didn't realize I needed. Yeah, especially after the way things ended between them, which I had forgotten. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch that last episode with Ro in it, just to kind of tie it all together and say, okay, yeah, now I'm seeing it from one end to the other. But yeah, Picard saw something in her. I thought it was a fantastic idea to bring her character back to be this handler of Worf. I mean, okay, think about it, right? Of all the TNG characters, both, main cast and recurring, how many of those characters could be a handler for Worf? Not many.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
Ro, I think, was the right pick in this case. I mean, if you think of one like kind of badass woman from TNG to be Worf's handler, it was Ro Laren. I mean, and none of us probably would have thought that until now. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I thought that was great. I thought that was great bringing her in. I thought Michelle Forbes' performance in this as an older Ro, and just the seriousness and the depth to her character in this was so fantastic. Really loved that whole scene between her and Picard, and this idea where she asks Picard straight up, because I'm a straight shooter, so I'm the kind of person I'm very, very honest. Some people say I'm brutally honest. I try not to be, but like she kind of reminded me of me in the sense like where she just asked Picard straight up, "Do you trust me?"
Right.
And he kind of has to think about it. He's like, "Yeah, I do trust you," even though he, was a pretty quick transition to that. But I think he realized, okay, she's being genuine. There's something going on here. I need to trust her. Other thoughts as I was watching this, Beverly and Jack, I think they're both hiding something. I think we saw that in the very end of it, right? Where that exchange that they had, that glance that they gave each other. Okay, something's up. At first, I'm thinking maybe Jack's just hiding something, but then we get that scene. It's like, oh, okay, Beverly's involved too. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's something sinister that they're up to, right? But maybe there's something they don't want out in the open. Maybe Beverly hasn't been as forthright with Picard and everybody else as maybe we thought she was. I mean, people are going to get sick of me saying this, but as a DS9 fan, I think I love the whole Changeling infiltration and this whole story arc. I think the Changelings are a fantastic bad guy story arc. I mean, there's no Jem'Hadar, there's no Vorta. The Changelings on their own, especially in this case, the Changelings, some rogue group of them that broke off from the Great Link and are now on this like terror path to destroy Starfleet after what happened with the Dominion War. It makes me wonder though, okay, so they're infiltrating Starfleet, right? In Picard season 3. But are they infiltrating the Klingons, the Romulan Empire? Because the Klingons and the Romulans also fought in this battle too, along with most of the Alpha Quadrant. Are they doing the same level of stuff with Starfleet in the Klingon Empire, the Romulan Empire?
When Jack was talking about them being hunted, he talked about Klingons showing up.
Oh yeah,
as one of the because there were Fenris Rangers, there was Starfleet, and there were Klingons. Yeah, so maybe.
Makes me wonder if he is one then. Maybe they're hunting him, and that's why the Changelings want him, mate. Oh.
I don't know.
All right, I gotta breathe. I gotta breathe here. I gotta breathe. It just, oh gosh, there's so much, right? But yeah, this idea of the highest levels of Starfleet being infiltrated very much reminds me back to that incredible 2-part episode in season 4 of DS9, Paradise Lost or Homefront and Paradise Lost, right? It's the same kind of similar concept. But I'm wondering where Vadic fits into all of this. So she was this villain that they throw in that just terrorizes the Titan, and they're doing the Nebula, the Wrath of Khan Nebula chase and everything else. I kind of think she's a changeling. I really do. I kind of think there's something going on there. And if she's not a changeling, she's some species that looks human, but she can like, be a hitchhiker for the changeling or so. I don't know. I'm not really exactly a vessel for the hitchhiking changeling, whatever. So I'm really curious how all this is going to get interwoven with Moriarty, with potentially lore. This could be some epic proportion ending. I don't know. My mind is definitely going to be explode by the time this season's over. But some of my general thoughts. I think if you could rate all of the episodes 1 through 5, I'm going to ask you guys this both question. Season or episode 1 versus episode 5, which one's your favorite so far? Can you pick one at this point?
Oh no, I haven't thought about that, Zach. Now I'm trying to.
I know it's kind of a put you in the spot moment here, but
I mean, as a standalone episode, I might go with No Win Scenario number 4. Because of that like space baby payoff at the end, and that there was so much kind of intense, awesome stuff that happened in it. Like it was that episode felt like a 2-hour movie somehow paced into 55 minutes. Like, yeah, it was amazing.
Okay. What about you, Chris?
I think the same. Yeah. I mean, I love that No Win Scenario like was connecting everything for me for the Kobayashi Maru and Star Trek 2 and like having all of that. So I have to think about it more, but I think that's the same. I really liked episode 4. Yeah,
Was episode 4, because things are starting to run together because it's a continual story, right? Versus standalones. Was episode 4 the one where Jack realizes that was the one that Jack realized, when Picard said that Starfleet was all he needed for a family? Wasn't that the one where he was back in the background? He asked a question. Okay. I think I'm there with you guys in episode 4. And we talked about this on the last episode. So if you haven't watched that, you guys go back and watch our review of episode 4. That scene where Jack's sitting back at the bar and he asks that question from behind, and Picard answers, and you just see his face like, oh gosh, that was hard to watch. Chris and I talked about that. Like my heart broke for Jack.
Oh yeah.
Because obviously Picard doesn't know, right? Picard's not intentionally, but even still, when Picard says Starfleet's all the family I need, and here he is, this son trying to come connect to his father, and it's just like, it rips your heart out,
It broke my heart for Picard too, because he didn't know what kind of damage that did, like just this offhand comment that he's making because he's kind of showing off, and he's just that the business line, right?
Company
Exactly
line,
exactly that what that would do, so even him saying that, I was, even before it went to Jack's face, I was like, oh god. Like no.
I would agree with you guys. I think no win for me, and not necessarily because I love that scene, because I will say I hated that scene, but not because it was poorly written. I hated it because my heart broke so much, for Jack, and I guess in some instances Picard too. But there hasn't been a bad episode in this season yet.
Yeah, when I say my favorite, I mean it's like
there's a fine line there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, and we have 5 episodes to go, and it feels like we have 5 more movies to watch, because that's how each episode feels, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned so much that come into these next 5 episodes. I had forgotten lore. I had forgotten Moriarty.
Yeah.
All of them are coming back in. That's a lot.
I'm assuming it's lore, because I saw one picture. I think it was from one of the Star Trek official pages, and they had the names of the different people, and then I think they had lore under him. I hope I'm not imagining that, but I think that was the case.
There's a moment in the preview where you see his face, and Geordi says, "God damn it, lore."
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So I think how does that all come into play?
What is that, a
It's
Mr.
going to
Matt?
be an ending of epic proportions.
Oh yeah.
You know, it makes me wonder if this really is it, if they're going to end it to where there is no possible outcome that this could continue, or if they're going to leave the crack in the door open in case, you know, Paramount or CBS or whatever decides, yeah, let's do more, because we've learned that there's a bottom line here, right? You know, we not to cross the streams here, but you know, unfortunately, Disney's done that with Star Wars, I think, where they've been milking it a little too much, and we're getting I think a downtrodden in quality for some stuff. Not all of it. Some stuff's been good, but I'm there's one part of me that's afraid of a oversaturation of Star Trek because of the idea they're talking about spin-offs now from different characters, and I'm like, let's press the brakes a little bit. Let's only do that if we're going to really get the same kind of quality that we're getting. If Terry's involved, I think it's going to be amazing, because so far his work as a showrunner has been nothing short of spectacular. Yeah. So
I think the fact that you know, they've said Discovery is going to end, and Strange New Worlds is going to continue, so we're losing Picard and Discovery at the same time. I genuinely think they will not have two more. I think we'll get one, maybe, but I don't think we'll get two, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah,
like you say, because I feel like if they do go ahead with something, I feel like it's going to be quality. Like,
I'll save my question about Strange New Worlds for you when we record our next episode with you. But yeah, I have some questions there. But anyways, yeah, this has been great. This was a heck of an episode. Oh my goodness. Talk about, you know, jam-packed full of stuff here. This was amazing. Jenny, thank you so much for coming on and guest hosting with us and sharing your thoughts. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're absolutely. We very much appreciate your time. We look forward to your virtual art show here on the next episode of our podcast. Chris, I don't know how much more they can pack into Picard season 3, but I'm glad we're doing this episode by episode review, and we get to go on the journey with this, because for those of you watching, if you don't know, we don't typically do episode by episode reviews of series. We do like the first episode of a season, then we come back and review the whole season. But I'm glad we're doing this, Chris, because this journey so far, there's been so much. Could you imagine having to try to unpack all of this 10 episodes of Picard into it'd be like a 12-part episode. Like, might as well just review it all.
Yeah, this has been great doing it by episode. I think we can get so much more in depth and talk about those moments that have meaning to us. So I'm glad we're doing this. This is, and I think this Picard season 3 definitely deserves it too, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to, what we've been told is to kind of go out with this crew, right? I mean, TNG, for many of us, TNG is what really got us into Star Trek. Right. I mean, I you know, the original series, I'd watch reruns and stuff as a kid, but I didn't have that kind of connection to it until TNG came along. So I think, you know, TNG will continue to be the gold standard, and why not take this journey with the crew one last time. Right. So, yeah. So anyways, thank you all so much for listening or watching all over the globe. We do very much appreciate all the countries that tune into us, and your time with us. Be sure to, again, go on Facebook, Instagram, like us, follow us there, or on your favorite podcast platform, or YouTube if you are just listening to us. And we look forward to bringing you our review of Picard season 3, episode 6, coming next weekend. So thank you again to Jenny for joining us, and we look forward to her virtual art show coming in just a few days right here on the Random Redshirt podcast. So take care, and we'll catch you next time.